The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. Well of Ascension is the second book in the Mistborn series, and just holy cow, it's awesome. Well of Ascension takes what made the first book really good and dials it up to 11. There's a lot of really great world building that is no longer hindered by you having to learn all of the mechanics of the world. There's a lot of great, just genuine action throughout the story, and there's also a lot of really great, just general character moments. But for me, the part that stood out and made Well of Ascension great, as opposed to just good to me, was the fact that it felt very cohesive and felt like it actually was properly connected and had been thought out from the start. See, this is one of the problems I've had with some modern fantasy stories lately, is that it feels like the author definitely planned out book one. Book one was very structured, very planned, very well thought out in its entirety. And then there wasn't really necessarily a plan for what might happen afterwards, right? Maybe because the author was a debut author and didn't know if they were going to get a second book in that series. Maybe because they didn't think that the series was going to get big, or maybe because they were just planning it book by book and didn't really think of a grand overarching scheme. Maybe they had some vague idea of some overarching plots, but the connective tissue wasn't necessarily there. With Well of Ascension, it is very clear Brandon Sanderson had a very clear plan with this story. Even if, I don't know what things were like at the time, but even if he didn't know if there was going to be a book two, it's very clear that book two directly follows the first book, and that things that he set up in the first book that seemed like they were complete narratives at the time suddenly become even more complete and gain more depth in book two. And that just is incredibly strong writing. Now, did the book definitely have the typical book two problem in a trilogy where it feels like it's setting up the third book? Yes. However, it really did not feel that way until literally the very end in the epilogue, and so I'm willing to cut Well of Ascension some flack on that regard. Overall, fantastic book. I am excited to see where book 3 goes. It's fantastic.